Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Q&A. It's a little bit earlier this week for just scheduling reasons, not anything awesome like a trip or some kind of cool new project. Well, I mean, I'm always working on insane projects, but it's really, I just needed to get stuff done in a certain order. So if your question was missed, I didn't do it on purpose. Please just re-ask next week. It probably just came in after I started recording. So really sorry about that, but let's jump in and see what we got. All right, let's start from the bottom of the list. David Kenyon asked if I knew anyone selling pre-assembled triple bypass boards. Yep, Insurrection Industries and Video Game Perfection. Insurrection has them in stock. You just have to choose whichever model matches whatever chip is on your Genesis. And Video Game Perfection either has them or will have them soon. And still at the moment, excuse me, I'm still coughing through this, I apologize. At the moment, still either stay away from the Genesis ones or just expect that there will be a second mod coming in the future. We're still working through that. Also, are there any step-by-step guides on the best ways to mount and where to pull signals from? So at the moment, what we have are detailed pictures of other people's confirmed good installations, not just random ones. So you'll have to, and there's a bunch of pictures for each. So basically you have to look at the motherboard in the pictures, find the spots, match the color of the wire up to the pin, but it should be something that even an intermediate person could do, not an expert. It might be a little confusing for beginners because it's nothing numbered or, you know, it doesn't walk you through it, but it should be good enough for intermediates. The end goal would be to have on the new wiki, instead of having one guide for each of these boards like I used to, which is, it gets outdated, you know, a couple times a year. The best thing to do would be to just have guides for each revision motherboard Genesis, or really every console where the motherboard revision matters, and say, here's where you pull RGB, here's the pins that you need to lift if you choose to, here's where you get audio, and have those colorfully numbered, so that way it's very easy, even for people with English who don't have a first language, until we start to get translations done. So that's what I want to do eventually on the wiki, and have that for all consoles. So that way every time somebody comes out with a new board, you don't have to redo all the video. I mean, I guess you could if people could redo videos if they felt like it. In fact, they probably should, just to get more views and stuff, but you don't have to redo the source core information on this stuff. That way you could just say, you could even say, hey, you know, solder points 1, 2, and 3 on my board to points 1, 2, and 3 on the wiki guide. And I think overall that's going to make things easier for everybody. So I'll leave links in the description to my triple bypass page, which is constantly getting updated with new pictures, and with the Video Game Perfection and Insurrection links. Matt Holder has a question that unfortunately I have no answer to, but maybe we could all help. He's been trying to find replacement disc cases for GameCube or PS2 games that aren't just generic DVD cases. So does anybody know where to get these? I just talked about the new Sega CD cases that could be used for PS1 Longbox or Saturn, but is there a place to get PS2 or GameCube cases? Please let me know if there are. I'd definitely like to do a quick little write-up on it. Eric Hurley had a great question. With all the HDMI console mods coming out, where do I stand on the HDMI versus RGB debate? My personal opinion is that there shouldn't be a debate. If you're using an RGB monitor, use RGB output. If you're using a flat screen or you're predominantly streaming, and there's an HDMI mod available, a good one, a good digital to digital mod, then do that. In the cases where you could do both, do both. Like the N64 Ultra HDMI Plus boardy board installation, I think is, or TIM board, you know, equal in quality for RGB. I think that stuff's great. I think that, you know, anytime you go digital to digital, there's more you could do with that signal in the future. So at the moment, it might not be a big deal, but 20 years from now, when there's 16K TVs, but you still have your same old mod, it would be really great to have just raw HDMI output of whatever the initial signal is, and then let whatever the OSSC 10th edition handle the scaling. That's why I've been really probably harassing Brian and Kevin and a bunch of people at this point to do just raw HDMI output of all of their HDMI mods. That way you don't have to worry about, you know, whenever 1080p becomes obsolete and that's your only choice. So I don't think there is a debate. I think everybody should just use whatever fits their setup best. And, you know, I think as long as it's a good HDMI mod, it's going to really buy the longevity of the site. So I'm a fan of all of these things, and whenever I have a chance to, I get all of the mods done. Like with Wii Dual, there are especially cases where I would prefer HDMI, or sometimes I prefer using RGB. So I love them all, and I think they're all excellent choices, and it's definitely, in my opinion, no debate. Cameron McCown found something that's going to end up as a news post on the site. Basically, the team who did Sonic Mania also did a Darkwing Duck remake, and did just a quick demo of it that they now just released to the public. Yeah, that's definitely worthy of a news post. That's awesome. So just remember that if you're part of the Discord, you could just post that link right in the news suggestions window, and no explanation needed. Just drop it in, and if it's something that I feel fits, I'll write it up, or as well as any of the other writers on the site. That's just kind of the community pile where people put stuff that we think might use an article. I, for one, certainly use it. Like right now, I just posted your link in that, and if another writer picks it up before I have a chance to, great, and if not, then I'll do the article later on today. So thanks for the contribution, and always feel free to post in the Discord about it. Next, Solid Unit asked if the triple bypass can be installed on a Nomad. That's a good question. So the triple bypass outputs using a THS-7374, and there's no components on the output line, as it should be for a Genesis. So the upside of that means you could split that output, one to the AV out and the other one to something like the LCD driver, and after splitting, each end needs its own termination. So you'd obviously need the properly built RGB cable, and you'd have to build in the caps and the resistors for your LCD driver circuit. But that would mean that you would get pretty much perfect quality video on both the LCD driver's RGB 240p screen and a video output. So that's a cool idea. That would also go for the Voltar board, because it also uses a 7374. But would it improve the Nomad headphone jack's noisy output? I don't know enough about that. It's possible. It's also possible that you'd have to remove the headphone jack amp and then install a totally different one. Then this comes down to, is there enough room inside this thing for all of that? But that's pretty neat. All of that is a very expert install, though. That's something like, Cruz, Voltar, Leon K could probably pull it off. But, I'm sorry, I know there's probably 10 more that could. I mean, no insult by not naming your name, I'm sorry. But just point being, this is an absolute expert installation. So if you're interested, maybe tweet or kind of look into people that have been doing work on those units. And as always, if you ask a modder to show examples of their work, they should be proud and happy to show examples, not iffy about it. So just make sure you find a good modder, somebody that could deal with the small spaces of handhelds and has a lot of experience with this stuff. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And if you do it, let me know, because I'd love to, even if you just took like a decent quality video of how it worked, I think that would be really neat. Ludo asked, which do I think is the best solution for the 3DO RGB mod? Otaku versus the Taiji Gamer versus the other one? The BU3616K, is that the one from Fusion Dance? I can't remember. To be honest, they're all pretty decent as far as I know. I'm not an expert with video signal levels. I usually refer to the experts when answering these questions. But I think the general overview is probably going to be a little more relevant to this, in that they all get RGB from the chip and allow you to display them, and then you need to install the switch that toggles between 240p and 480i. And yes, there are some games where 480i is probably better, but for the most part, I believe that library really shines in 240p, whereas the one that Dan Citrus is working on might actually be able to process everything in 240p without worrying about flicking a switch back and forth and all that stuff. So right now, I would get whatever's the easiest for you overall. But in the future, I'd really like to see what Dan has to offer and what a few other people that I think might be working on 3DO solutions have to offer, because there might be a better way to go about doing this. And that's not an insult to those other things. It's just, that's life, right? Somebody comes out with something amazing, a little while later, somebody improves on it. It's just the way things are. But Yeah, I don't know. I think I would just pick whichever works best for you. And don't forget that all 3DO RGB mods can be a no-cut mod. All you have to do is remove the RF jack and then use that thing, I think I have it right here, in fact, where you use these boards that go on top, and you just drop those DIN connectors upside down, solder those to the motherboard where the RF hole was, and there you go. You have a no-cut mod where the mini DIN 8 goes right through the RF hole. The only thing I've seen is sometimes you have to cut a little rubber off the end of the cable, but whatever, right? So, let me know which one you get and if you like it, and I'll keep everybody posted when there's solid info on newer mods. Riot Gear asked, since the GDEMU is nearly impossible to get, how are the clones in comparison? Are they really that much worse? No, they're pretty much perfect. So you can't update them. If you update them, it'll ruin them forever. It'll totally brick it. So it'll just work with the firmware that's on it, which works perfect for me. And also, if you get one and you get the DC HDMI, and the audio doesn't work, you need to change the crystal. It's a part on DigiKey, it's cheap, it's an fairly easy thing to swap out. So, and I talk about that in the Dreamcast video too, but I tried 2 of them with the DC HDMI that I bought one off of Amazon and one, I think I got it directly from China or something, and both worked fine. So I have a lot of opinions about that situation, which I'll just keep my mouth shut about and just answer your question and say, if you pick up one of the ones on Amazon, if you're in the US, Amazon, get, I guess, the Chinese ones if you're everywhere else. As long as you don't update it, you should be fine. Cameron McCowan had 2 things to say. I'll talk about the easiest one first. First, he just wanted to share that he got his light gunverter from Charlie Cole, and it works perfect, and it even works with his RGB SCART setup because he got a SCART breakout box. So that means that you don't actually need composite video, you just need sync, which is awesome, because I didn't realize that, to be honest. Or maybe I did and I just forgot. Now that I say it out loud, I'm starting to remember a little bit about the interview, but yeah, that's awesome. So that cool little breakout, you don't have to worry about breaking out separate composite video. That's great news. Also, he said it looks like Hyperkin is making a NES Zapper for HD TVs. So this is, here's the fact. It's a new Zapper that works on CRTs. And if you have an original Duck Hunt cart, and only Duck Hunt, you could add an extension to the end of the cart, and then that will make it work on HD TVs. So that's the facts. My speculation is it sounds like they just took the work of the LCD mod guy and put it in a piece of hardware that patches the ROM in real time. And if that's the case, I would hope that they worked with him. And if not, that's a real dirtbag move. And as soon as, to be honest, as soon as I can get my hands on one, I'm going to test that. And if it turns out they stole his code, I'm going to make the biggest deal about that. I'm going to stamp my feet, jump up and down like a spoiled brat, and make sure that everybody on the planet hears me. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they paid him. Maybe he offered it for free, thinking it was a cool idea. Or maybe the Hyperkin engineers sat down and diligently came up with their own. Matt Holder asked if I knew anybody who tried out the NES Power Module replacement project. No. And I'm not remembering it, so maybe if I talked about it, I'm just completely drawing a blank. So I guess maybe just send me a link and I'll see if I can check it out. Chris from Belgium had a bunch of questions. I'll try to get through them kind of quick, otherwise I could probably talk for like an hour about this stuff. First, which mod chip is Voltar using for the PS1 in his video? I have no clue. However, Super G in the interview with me talked about making his own open source version of a mod chip that kind of handles everything one could ask for in a PS1. So I would look into that, and I mean, it might be out, excuse me, it might be out in a few months. If you need one right now, I would just, I don't know, I'm not an expert on PS1 mod chips, so I guess I would just try to find maybe the PSX scene forums and see if anybody there is making them that kind of overall people think are the best ones. Next, he heard us talking about the PAL SNES 1 chip not being compatible with Voltar's bypass board. I'm pretty sure it is. I just think you have to, I think it is. To be honest though, I haven't really tried, and I think Bordy has a lot more experience with all of the PAL SNES stuff. So maybe look into getting his board from Video Game Perfection I mean, Matt should have a guide for doing a PAL install. Just remember that no matter what, you're going to get 12 volts on the sync line. So unless you cut that 12 volt pin and put C-Sync on it, you can't get true C-Sync. I guess you could also cut composite video and put C-Sync to that. That would probably be a good solution. Just leave yourself a note, like tape like an index card in there or something that says composite video has been disabled, this console is not broken. That way if somebody else ends up with it, they won't throw it out thinking it's broke. Next, is there any restriction about the digital audio mod? Not that I know of. I think it just installs in whatever SNES that you put it in, including the original with the separate sound module. I tested all that stuff. Last, between Patreon, the Bitbacker, and Subscribe-Star. Yeah, those are the ones. Sorry, I always forget the name. Is there one that's better for me? Less fees, more freedom. I mean this in the nicest way possible. I genuinely don't care. I hope that anyone chooses whichever is easiest from them. I get a lot of emails asking me to switch to Subscribe-Star, and not one person signed up. So whichever is easiest for everybody else, I think. I do believe there were some issues with Subscribe-Star themselves having to shut down signups because so many people were jumping ship from Patreon so quickly. But yeah, in all honesty, anybody that wants to support me, I think that's amazing, and I'm so appreciative of it, so just do whichever is the easiest for you. Cameron McCown and Chris Larson asked about the new Pound technology cables, and man, this really strikes a nerve with me. And I think a lot of people misunderstand and think that I'm some elitist that only cares about the best. And while for me personally, I really would only want to play on the best now that I've seen what's out there, your average person just wants something that works. And I not only do I sympathize with that, I think I've put almost as much effort into that as I have getting the best out of things. The problem I have with Pound technology is, and I'm going to be blunt, and if people really want, I could make a video about why, but they don't give a shit about their consumers. They are every basic company out there that just thinks, hey, I could make a buck off of this. Why don't I fill this hole in this market with garbage because there is no other choice, and people think that they have to buy mine. And I hate that they're doing this. And specifically what I hate is that they're approaching it from a, well, let's just get the easiest thing that I can make the most profit on. And the reason I'm saying that is because they chose a way to do this that uses a chip that's probably not going to be compatible with all TVs, that will add lag, and that processes the signal wrong. So, I'm not so upset that they're using composite video, because if you want a true solution for everybody, that means if you're using RGB to upscale, that would mean that you've now excluded the mini consoles, you've excluded and all N64s and as well as NTSC GameCubes, or requiring those consoles to get a mod. And if you're willing to mod the consoles, you're probably going to go a little bit farther than this crappy cable. So I get it. I get why they would use composite video. It makes sense. But why not choose a chip that processes the signal right and doesn't add any lag? For things like Saturn, no excuse. All Saturns output RGB. Pull sync from composite. Yeah, maybe you'll get a little bit of interference, but who cares? Or Luma. I think all of them output Luma. So whatever, that's great. Genesis, same thing. You could always get RGB from every Genesis. So it just, the way they approach it is what pisses me off a lot. Not the fact that there's a cheap cable out there. And I'll tell you right now, if there is ever a cheap cable like this that just works, that, maybe they're not going for the best quality, maybe it is just passable, but there's nothing wrong with it, I will pimp the hell out of that thing, because so many people, even if you tell them, like, hey, if you end up buying a cable for Genesis, then a cable for SNES, then a cable for Saturn, you could actually buy this box and these other cables together, and it'd be about the same. You might get a better experience. Most people aren't going to care. They'd rather just buy the one-offs and not have to worry about any of this extra stuff. And I totally get it. And I want there to be a market for those people so badly. But I hate that companies like Pound exist and don't give a shit. I hate that anytime a YouTuber or even other stores feels like they can get attention from this, they jump on it. And I'll tell you, I've never really shit on their Dreamcast cable, because it's not good, but it's not supposed to be. It's just supposed to work. And their Dreamcast cable uses VGA. It doesn't use composite, and it doesn't add any lag. So you know what? That's a perfectly passable solution for people that just want it to work. I actually have been using their competitor's version, not theirs, just because of my no longer silent protest to Pound. There's another one out there that I think they're all just from the same basic Chinese manufacturer, but yeah, they drive me crazy. I hate this whole situation. We went into detail on the Retro Roundtable episode about this, so anybody that's interested, please give that a listen, because, you know, while I was a little heated, I meant everything I said, and there's just so many better ways to be going about this. So let's all cross our fingers and hope that there's going to be a good solution coming up. Sorry for cutting the end of that. I went in kind of a coughing fit and didn't want to keep that on camera. But yeah, so I guess that sums it up. If somebody just took their time and did it right, I'd be behind it 100%. Next, Evil Lightbulb says, "Hey Bob, most monitors advertise 1 millisecond gray to gray. The issue with that is that it isn't whatever is really used, since most people want low response time on all colors. The reason they do this is that there's no real standard, and technically it's not false advertising, since they usually do list 1 millisecond gray to gray. So basically they choose the lowest number possible to make the monitor look better." So, you know, I get it. I think my point was still that we need a database of what are actually low lag monitors, and I was able to pick up a ZSWorks kit. So I have a Samsung monitor sitting right over there. That is another one listed as 1 millisecond gray to gray. I will soon take that apart and in fact, I'm going to shoot the first half of the video on that, hopefully early next week, so I could see how that performs by itself. And then I'll shoot the other half of that video once the ZSWorks kit comes in, and we'll see how it performs afterwards. So I'm excited to find that out, and you know, while technically you're right, it's not false advertising, it's still bullshit. So don't trust the 1 millisecond ads. Wait for other fellow nerds to test and post their results with actual measurement data. And the last two, Smoke Monster did chime in about wanting a Supergun video. I'm trying to formulate the best way to do that, both you know, the best way to present the whole thing, as well as making sure that I get all the data correctly. I still need a newer version of the Sentinel, and I think the version of the HASS that's shipping now is probably going to be the one that ships for a while. So I think I'm good with hardware once the Sentinel comes in and once Marcus's digital CPS2 comes in. And then I just need to see how I want to present it. Do I want to do separate videos all in one? It's always rough because, you know, I feel like separate videos are probably the best way to go, because then I could do, here's what Superguns are, here's what this one is. But I think a lot of people would skip some of the more technical stuff that you really should know before watching the other one. Kind of like what I did with the Dreamcast video. There definitely should have been a video that says, here is Dreamcast video output signal, and that probably would have gotten 3,000 views. And then I should have had one, here's Dreamcast on flat screens. So yeah, it's anybody have any ideas on how to formulate the Supergun one? I think I got it, but it's going to be a few months away because I have 3 more in the pipeline, possibly 4 that I really want to get done quickly. So yeah. And lastly, Marcus has commented that I screwed up and spelled the title of last week's Q&A wrong. Thank you very, very much. And especially thank you to any of the people who have early access to the videos that point out things misspelled in the videos. Because things like a YouTube title or a description or even pages on the website, whatever, you know, press 2 buttons, the spelling's fixed and you're done. But things like title cards in the videos, things that pop up on screen, to fix those, I'd have to redo the whole video. So thank you very much. Please continue to point them out. And everybody, please continue to point them out whenever you see them on the videos. It's always embarrassing when I leave a typo in there. Well, that's it for this Q&A. Sorry about any of the autofocus issues. I'm not really sure what was going on with my camera this week, but I'll have that fixed by the next video. And for any newcomers to this, please post any question you have in the latest Q&A post on any of the supporter platforms. So Patreon, Subscribestar, whatever. I disable the comments on these because this is really focused towards the supporters only. And when I release them to the public about a month later, that's more like just a courtesy. This really is all about you. So wherever you found this video or whatever is the latest Q&A, please post your question there. I always love doing these, and I really enjoy the participation inspiration. So thank you very much for doing it. And of course, thanks so much for all your support. See you guys next time.